I like this. This is good. More people arriving. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, bitches, bros, and non-binary hoes, please welcome to the stage me. Thank you for applauding. I was worried it was going to be like my GCSE A level drama kind of thing, where you just kind of come out and they're like, in your own time, and it's fucking terrifying. Also, I have to have this because we are recording in beautiful 4K right there for my Patreon subscribers. Some of whom I see this evening. Thank you very much for all of your money. I love you. So anyone here who hasn't heard my podcast? It's fine, you can be honest. 1, 2, 3, okay, cool. Does that mean everyone else has heard the podcast and you came anyway? That's excellent. Thank you very much. Is there anyone here who is only here because they're friends with me and I guilted them into it? Couple of hands. Anyone here? This will be fun. Anyone here that I've slept with? Yes, 2, 3. Okay, I'm seeing 3 hands. I know for a fact that there's more than 3 people in this room. You cowards! But never mind, I'll get you back later. Anyone here who wants to sleep with me? Just plans for later, after this thing's finished. 1, 2. Okay, excellent, that'll do. That's a good night. Fuck it, why not? Thank you all for coming and joining me on what is effectively me losing my live show virginity. It's going to be just like every other virginity loss. It's going to be messy and sticky and a little bit awkward and weird, but we'll get through it. Although, to be honest, that my last virginity had a larger audience than this, but that's another story. Probably shouldn't tell those stories. Anyway, I think actually part of this is very weird having people watching me do this. Normally, I'm kind of on my own under a duvet or in a cupboard just talking to myself. I think that works. That's a lot better. I could just do this for the rest of the evening. Although now I'm worried that you can see my bum, so I'm going to turn back around. Anyway, so welcome. Thank you for coming. I've got my notes here because, as I said when I do my podcast, I don't normally have to remember it all. I can write it down. So, actually talking virginity stories. A friend of mine, was telling me about a time one of the times he lost his virginity, and he was like a really excited, horny teenager, as most of us were at the time, and he, for whatever reason, he thought it was going to be some kind of amazing athletic experience. So he got mattresses from different rooms and had them up against the walls, so he could be like boing, 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 boing. Apparently, it didn't last long enough for any of that, so it was more just kind of boing splat and done. But hey, never mind. So this is telling stories, is what I originally named this. If you want to take photos, please do. If you're going to tweet them, use the hashtag #ProbablyTrueLive. Me standing here telling stories, sitting here telling stories, just kind of faffing about, basically. And the reason I called it telling stories was obviously because that's what I do, but also because apparently that's really important. It was. I was listening to some podcast, and there was an evolutionary biologist who was saying that one of the things that set us apart evolutionarily from other mammals who were kind of around the same point in their evolution, I'm using that word a lot, Jesus, was that we started telling stories. We started sharing our narrative and learning from each other and growing and doing all these things about in the past and in the future that changes the way our brains work. Which is understandable, and as we've kind of evolved, our brains have kind of, it's this weird thing where telling stories, your brain doesn't know the difference between a story and real life. That scientists have kind of scanned people's brains when they've run a marathon, or when they've just sat and thought about running a marathon, and your brain can't tell the difference. Your body can, obviously, because in one of them you're all exhausted and sweaty and achy, another one you just sat on your arse eating crisps. But but your brain on its own can't tell the difference, and part of it is evolutionary. It's because for the longest time we only had to deal with the things that were in front of us, and then suddenly, some hunter gatherer back in the day, let's call him Jeff. Jeff the hunter was off, and some big toothy thing tried to kill him, and he stopped it and ran away. He managed to run away from this thing that was trying to kill him. And when he got back to the village and he was telling people about it, and it became this thing that not only was this thing big and trying to kill him, but he was brave enough to fight it off before he ran away, and that's why he survived. And as these stories kind of evolved and grew, he became this storyteller, did Jeff, the mighty hunter by this point. And then over time, like his kids and their kids would tell stories of Jeff, the mighty hunter, and he became a god. And then and things like that. And I mean, even this is a story that I'm telling you, but it makes sense and you can understand it. And that's what puts us apart from all the apes and stuff, is that we tell stories and shit like that. And I love that kind of thing. And I'm always very interested in this idea of reality as perception. So the stories that we tell our brains are what our brains assume is reality, because they have to be, because they have no other way. Your brain is just kind of this lump of mush inside your skull. It doesn't know, it has no way of telling what's going on other than what it sees and hears. And so and brains, when you think of a brain, you think in my head, it always seemed like quite a solid thing, quite hard, quite gristly. But no, if you dropped it, it wouldn't kind of doing, doing, doing or anything like that. It would splash. It's very gooey. Don't poke a brain if you get the chance. It's not a good idea. So the idea that there's this big blob of fatty goo stuck inside a skeleton that's wrapped in meat, and it's just full of electricity, and that's where everything that we see and hear and are and experience is just electricity in some goo. It's very strange to me, but I love it as a thing. And all the stories we tell each other, and that's everything that our community and our society is based on. A good example, and the stories that we tell, I'm getting somewhere with this. I promise. This is gonna get. I'm gonna get back to the dick jokes. I promise. That it's not all. You've not wandered into an anthropology lecture accidentally. The way that we tell stories and the way that we shape reality, I find very, very interesting. There was an example of this recently. Our cleaner, because I'm that middle class, I have a cleaner. Mostly I have a cleaner because I have two scruffy housemates, and I'm sick of having the same conversation about whose turn it is to hoover up and whose turn it is to wash the pots. So I'd much rather just chuck money at it and save all those arguments. Anyway, she came and she was telling us that her daughter was arrested, was in jail. She'd been arrested because she'd been searched and found with a knife on her. And being a kind of bleeding heart liberal, I was like, oh my God, that's awful. That's such a horrible thing to happen, blah, blah, blah. And it turned out that the reason she was searched was because she was fleeing a crime scene. And the crime she was fleeing from was someone being stabbed. So it's quite understandable to when you get all the facts and you kind of change the gist of the narrative, it's understandable why this woman was arrested and was in prison for having a knife on her. It was because she'd stuck it in someone else. But I love that that's not the story that her mum tells. Her mum tells that her innocent daughter was arrested just for having this knife on her. And I think we do that quite a lot. Like, we fix things in post is the kind of like production term, like which just means that we have what happens and then we replay it in our heads, but we can tweak it a little bit and tweak it a little bit and tweak it a little bit, and sooner or later it bears no resemblance to what actually happened. It's just another story that we've told ourselves, and sometimes we do that and we make ourselves the victim, and we put ourselves far enough away from the things that are the issue. Again, don't worry, I'm coming back to the dick jokes. We will get there in a bit. I'm just warming you up with some light anthropology. Fuck it, yeah. So there was, in fact, we'll do a dick joke. We'll do a little dick joke story while I'm doing this because it actually helps my point thinking about it. There was a guy that I hooked up with quite recently, and he was telling me how he's a real empath and like he really feels other people's emotions quite a lot, and it's actually a bit of a curse for him, and because it's so hard feeling everyone else's pain and things, and I was kind of like, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, you're going to take your trousers off, excellent, thank you, let's just get it on. And then afterwards, I added him on Instagram, and this great empath is an anti-vaxxer, and I'm like, how are you an anti-vaxxer? And he's like, oh, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, I don't like that word, that's offensive. And I'm like, you're posting about how the vaccines are bad. You are against the vaccines. That makes you an anti-vaxxer. And the last thing you said before I blocked him was, oh, you and your words. You can use words to mean anything. You're just twisting it. And I'm like, no. And the story he told himself was that he was this great empath, but also the vaccines were all trying to control us. And incidentally, the Wi-Fi down here is very good. So please do connect your nanobots and tweet about this if you feel like it. There was another, the other one that kind of stuck out to me about this, and this one's not really a dick one, but never mind. I'll power through. Was I go to a queer film festival every year because I like to go and hear queer stories told by queer people. And there was a speech by the chair of the organisation that runs this film festival, whose name is Andrew Pierce. And he was stepping down and he gave this lovely speech about how sad he was that anti-LGBTQ violence was on the rise, and especially against trans people and things like this. It was all very, very sad and very scary, an indictment of today's society, blah, blah, blah. Which was all very nice of him to tell these stories. But his day job is writing for the Daily Mail. Like, how can you separate those two things in your head? Sorry, his title is consulting editor for the Daily Mail. So he makes probably 5 or 6 figures from trading in the kind of invective and hate that directly fuels LGBTQ violence and things like that. Anyway, that's not what I want to talk about. But, we've done salty blancmange, so, we can move on. It does seem odd that in a world where, we're driving around these skeletons wrapped in meat, that then we have to deal with complex things like cricket and mortgages and interest rates and stuff that I just don't understand. But never mind. So, yes, the world's a mess. Excellent. Good. We're off to a good start with this, aren't we? All right, so things get a little bit lighter, I promise. Especially because we're talking about, with the world being a mess, we're going to talk a little bit about lockdown and coronavirus, because there's a lot of stories in there as well that I know I've kind of touched on. But the one that I was thinking about the most was how during lockdown I was living by myself, and that was weird to live in lockdown by myself, because it meant I wander around naked a lot anyway, which is great. Just kind of feeling the breeze. It's great. I promise. I recommend it if you haven't tried it already. But to have no social contact for that long, it's very, very strange. And I've always kind of said to people, I'm a bit of an introvert. I like to be around people. I like to talk to people, but then I have to go away and recharge my batteries. And things like this. And during lockdown, the story changed a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm actually really quite introverted. I don't want to be around people. I don't want to be. Maybe I'm just happier on my own. And one of the things that actually kind of pulled me out of this was the painful loneliness, obviously, but also just so much fantasizing about. I think it's that kind of, it's going to be great when it happens again. It'll be amazing. And it was things like it was like sex. Oh, it'll be great when I have sex again. And you're like, yeah, no, it's going to be just as disappointing as it was before. Except you've built it up a little bit, but never mind. So yeah, in the years BC, which is before Corona now, I think. Sorry, Jesus, you've had your fun. We got to restart again from the world ending. I was running around having a lot of mildly disappointing sex, and I kind of hoped that. After 6 months of not having any, that we all could have reset, and that we'd be kinder and better at it with each other, and a little bit less just kind of. Because a lot of the sex I had, especially with the boys on Grindr, bless them, was very much I just want to come and I want someone to stick it in while I get there, rather than hey, let's two people who are actually very into each other, let's have a lot of fun together. But anyway, one of the things I found during lockdown is after lockdown, even now, since lockdown, is I tend not to wear underwear anymore. Like the world's ended. Fuck it. I'm not wearing any pants ever again. Eyes up here. Thank you. But yeah, how dare you? I know. And I mean, I don't. And this again. We can link this back to the stories that we tell each other, that we have to wear secret pants underneath our public trousers. And why? I think the only reason I can think of so far is to catch drips. But I wear dark jeans for that very reason, and also a quick dab with some toilet roll. That's all you need. But otherwise, if you're gonna go commando, go in something dark. Is all I can say, because it works a lot better. I found as well I eat a lot faster after lockdown, because I think. Because I was before, when I was sat at home by myself in front of Netflix, if I had food, I'd be like, just trying to get it out of the way, because the noise of me eating meant I couldn't hear what the telly was doing, because I'm a disgusting slob. And I think, maybe something similar. Maybe the same problem with sex and stuff. Like I was fantasizing about, it's gonna be great when I get to suck a dick again. Oh, it's gonna be amazing. And then in my head, it was going to take about 20, 30 seconds, and it'd be great. And then, you're down there for a while working away, and it's like, God, my jaw's starting to ache, my tongue hurts. Like, come on, why is this taking so long? And I think perhaps the fantasy is always a little bit better than the reality, unless I just have very poor taste in men, which, is certainly possible. It's gonna... avoiding eye contact with everyone who put their hand up earlier. But I think as well, because I felt like I had to write a little bit to address the kind of the lockdown coronavirus-y shit. And it does feel like there's a little less joy in things now. Everything feels a little bit less fun. There's a weight to people now that I don't remember before. And maybe this is just a story I'm telling myself, like the good old days that didn't really exist. But everything just feels a little bit grim. And so I think it's important that we all kind of collectively focus on finding joy in the shit that we do and things like that. And I've been trying to think of sexy things that could bring more joy. And the one that I've got in my head, this isn't even one of mine. I can't take credit for this idea, but I love it. Someone mentioned on a forum a ball gag with a kazoo in it, and I think that's brilliant, because then just every time someone spanks you, you just get this lovely kind of noise, and I love that. And then I started thinking, like, you could have 4 or 5 of different pitches, and you could play a tune on people just spanking away up and down the ring. But maybe that's another project I can start, the ball gag kazoo band. Or you could just fuck a one-man band and just make him make all the noise. Anyway, I was one of the few people, I think, who acted very smug at the beginning of lockdown, because I didn't notice a difference in my social life or anything else. I was like, oh yeah, this is fine. I've been living like this for years, and now everyone else is complaining about it. I'm so lonely. And it took me quite a while to realize just how much pain that living like that costs. And now kind of I'm out the other side of it, and I'm here talking to you, and I'm going to hang out with some of you afterwards, hopefully, and have a drink, and actually really deplete those social batteries just for funsies. And like throughout lockdown, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to stop drinking as well. I'm gonna be like really good to my body and all that shit. I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm going to be really healthy, because I feel so much better now. And if I have a drink in lockdown, then the next day I feel really shitty, and it makes no difference, because every day is the same, and I can do whatever, and I can feel really shitty. I feel like I really missed an opportunity to try all of those exciting drugs, where you see people. There are people on Grindr who will be off their tits on Friday until Sunday night, and then we'll go to work Monday, and then we'll do the same thing. And I don't know how they can do it, because I have a couple of drinks. This is my third drink this evening, and tomorrow I will be fairly useless. And just to think, like, if I'd stuck half a gram of coke up my nose, or something even more exciting, I don't know how I could then drag myself to work on the Monday and pretend I had a good weekend. Yeah, it was fun. Saw some friends. Got fucked by strangers for 8 hours straight. I don't have that in me. But yeah, so basically that was a long way around of saying thank you very much everyone for coming. I'm not done. Say sat down, you fuckers. But thank you for coming, because I know, like, if you're anything like me, going outside gets a lot harder post lockdown. It even got to the point where I was messaging people on Grindr, or rather I was writing the message to send to someone on Grindr, and then I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. I don't want to bother them. I don't want to. And I would, sometimes I would delete the message and I wouldn't send it, and it was the whole kind of the story was shifting in my head and going from this is something I have to do and soon I will be able to go and be social again, to I don't want to go outside. I don't want to be social. I want to be by myself, and that's not always true. I do like my space, but we'll come back to that in a bit, I'm sure. But then I think the other side of that is the kind of people who ring unexpectedly. Because I've had a few people call who like to call without just out of the blue, and I'll just watch it ring, and afterwards I'll text them and go, "Hey, what's up?" And they'll be like, "Oh, I rang you." I'm like, "Yes, I know. I was holding my phone, waiting for it to stop so I could text you and ask you what you wanted," which apparently makes me strange. I thought when I was younger, back in the olden days, gather round kids, Nana's telling a story. There was no way to tell someone you were going to ring, and you just had to answer the phone. And if it was your friend, you dealt with it and you spoke to them. And now the joys of technology mean we don't have to if we don't want to. And I think I like that. I like to get a bit of a run-up to my social interactions. Someone turning up at my doorstep would be very weird and uncomfortable for me, and phone calls are very similar, like just popping in on my digital doorstep, as it were. It makes me very, very uncomfortable, and that's one of those things that I'm still kind of dealing with. And talking of being a child and dealing with things differently as we were growing up, actually, I don't know, as we're growing up, there's this idea that we're all grown-ups. I mean, I'm almost 40. I say I'm almost 40. I'm 38. I'll be 39 in January. But in my head, I'm almost 40, which is another story. I'm just telling myself, and I can feel myself kind of getting older and slowly curving, and I make those old man noises now when I get up and when I sit down. There's a lot of kind of thing. Absolutely unnecessary. I go to the gym. I lift big, heavy things up for fun, and yet at home I make a grunty noise when I get off the sofa, and it's entirely the narrative in my head, and I don't know why. But the idea that at any point we shift from child to grown up is very, very strange, especially when you look back at the people who now are considered grown-ups. I live near here, and there's 2 halls of residence within 5 minutes of my flat, which is all sorts of fun on Grindr. When I've got young gentlemen half my age who are messaging me and things, but and then you hear them talk. Good Lord, how are you allowed out by yourself? That really shouldn't be a thing. And I think we're all very keen to grow up. We're all very keen to become adults, and I'm still not sure what that means. I still feel like a 17-year-old who's been left unsupervised. And technically that is true. I've just been left supervised for a very long time. And you'd think by now I would have, I want to say grown up, but maybe all the grown-ups that we knew when we were younger, the people that we looked up to, were just making it up as they went along. I feel like that has to be part of it, because some of them are idiots. And, we're supposed to be them now, but And I think I'm rambling a little bit here, but that's okay. That's what we're doing. I'm rambling. You're enjoying it, I'm sure. Um, is like this whole millennials aren't buying houses; they're eating avocado toast. I'm like, yeah, because there's no money. The world's changed. We can't do previously in humanity. It was everyone's life was fairly similar to their parents in that they would go to school, they would meet some people, they would leave school and get a job, they would marry someone, probably someone they met at school, they would squirt out some kids, and then they would die. And that was pretty much the same every time. But the world changed, and we grew up. And suddenly there's this whole vista of additional things that we can do, and our jobs don't mean we have to be in a factory or I'm from quite a very working class background. My grandparents were miners. I'm the first in 10 generations to not work down or very close to down a pit, and that's odd because that was a grown-up job, and I'm not doing a grown-up job. And I used to have, like, in the marketing agencies and the ad agencies where I worked, we'd have the CEO would come striding in his designer suit and be like, "How are things on the coalface today, guys?" And I'd be like, "This is not a coalface. This is me pressing buttons. I'm on Twitter." But anyway, part of not wanting to settle down and squirt out children, I think, is part of the queer experience. We find that the life that is prescribed for us, is expected of us, doesn't fit. And that's part of what it is to embrace your queerness and your otherness, and to not become another minor. Thank you, Mrs. Thatcher. It's weird to think that had she not closed all the pits, that might have been what I had to do. Not had to do, but what I would have been expected to do was go work down the pits. I don't like the idea that Margaret Thatcher did something that was good. That seems wrong, doesn't it? That's not. I'm not going to do. I'm stopping that thought right there. Anyway, the world doesn't fit anymore, and it was exhausting to try and fit into that kind of world that wasn't built for me, for us. So much. Apparently, the kids on the internet have come up with a word for people who are tired of pretending to be kind of straight and into that whole straight culture, and it's het-lagged. I quite like that. It's quite clever. Yeah, I'm not taking credit for that one, but it's in my show, so fuck it. And so we went from working in a dangerous hole full of dirt and dust and things that were trying to kill us, to working in offices and staring at screens all day. And that was better in that it wasn't actually actively trying to kill me, just it was slowly crushing my soul. I've worked for several different marketing and advertising firms, and my job for one of the last one that I worked for was to make them seem good at what they did. They were good at what they did, but it was my job to make them seem better at what they did. There's a statistic, that's the word I'm looking for. There's a statistic in advertising that I think 5% of all advertising is remembered because it's so bad, 3% is remembered because it's so good, and the rest is not remembered. And every advertising agency I've worked for has been more than happy to aim for that middle ground, enough to take the money off the clients, but not actually do anything very good. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to try anything daring. We just want to do exactly what the client wants. We want the money off them so we can all go away, and the CEO can buy another Jag and all that. And that crushing kind of mediocrity, it got to me. I didn't really like it. So I'm glad I'm out of it. But now standing outside it and looking in and seeing all these people that are talking about, no one wants to go back to the office. And I'm like, yes, it was miserable. People hated it. But it teaches you so much about the human condition. It's, yes, most humans are dicks. We don't want to be around them anymore. And a lesson in human nature. And professionalism, there's a story that we're told and that we're supposed to keep up. This idea that that when we're at work we are professional, that we are business focused, and we're talking about things like that. And I've never really got on with that either, because I walk around without my shoes on. I want to get comfy. I want to be able to think and do my job well when I used to do that kind of thing. And that was weird. People, oh, it's not professional. It's not professional. He takes his shoes off. Oh, it's not. He's got funny hair. I actually had one company I worked for. I was freelancing, and at the end of my contract, which ended because I quit because I hated it, the office manager asked me in for an exit interview, which is weird in itself. You don't do exit interviews for freelancers. You go, here is the money, please go away. You do an exit interview when it's someone who's been working for you for a while and you want to find out why they're leaving. Turned out she just wanted to have a little chat. And it was, oh, we don't mind your hair and the fact that you don't wear your shoes at your desk. And I'm like, really? Because you're bringing them up? Kind of feels like you mind, but you're not allowed to say anything. Yeah, and it's just that you're not very professional. And we think that in the future you might find it beneficial to be more professional. What she meant was that I had a bit of a personality. I also, at that job, I absolutely hated that job. I did use the MacBook that they gave me to edit my nudes because it had Photoshop installed and I didn't have that at home. But no one knew about that, and I know no one knew about that because I'm fairly certain they would have fired me rather than anything else. But so yeah, thank you to them for my edited nudes. In fact, this is that very MacBook. Which all they had to do was ask for it back. They did not. So any time now, I'm sure I'm going to get an email. But hey, never mind. But yeah, so and I think working in an office, especially, I found there was a real joy in doing a massive poo on company time. Like just going, having your lunch. It would always be. It was like a routine. Get back from lunch and have a big coffee, and then half an hour later go and do a massive poo in the one cubicle that had Wi-Fi. Obviously, because you needed to keep yourself entertained while you're in there. And then over time that kind of progressed. And it did eventually become my daily wank on work time, which was very professional of me, I'm sure. Another reason, but it helped. It passed the time. I got the job done. No one could complain I wasn't doing what I was there for. It's just I was doing other things too, and why not? The other part of this is then when I've been looking for work, because funnily enough, this doesn't pay the bills. Was all the job descriptions were all things like, oh, it's a really dynamic, fast-paced work environment. We need someone who's going to hit the ground running and be really ready and adaptable and available all the time, and blah, blah, blah. Will be willing to work unusual hours. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ. If you want to attract people to the job, your job description should be, it's mostly emails, You can come in hungover and get through the day fine. No one will mind. I would sign up for that job right away. But anything where it's like, oh yeah, if you've not cried in the toilets by lunchtime, you've not been reading your emails properly, mate. It's not the kind of job I want. It's Jesus Christ. Anyway, and this is one of the reasons that I've resisted this far getting back into work. Thanks again, Patreon subscribers, for keeping me out of an office where I'd just be wanking myself senseless on company time. Just decide whenever I'm in that kind of situation, I'm reminded of what a beautiful, ridiculous planet this is, with like mountains and gorges and beautiful sea views, and there's places you can go and stand and the sea will glow green at night, and all these animals that you can interact with and all these beautiful things. And there's even places you can go where you will see the magnetosphere, yeah, will glow with all these beautiful colors. You'll see this amazing, indescribable stuff happening above your head. That's all this natural things are happening. And I think about all those things, and then I think about sitting in an office and bothering with Excel. And it ruined. I can't. I don't think I can go back to it, and I'm happy not to. Thanks again, Patreon subscribers. And I thought about taking up. I thought about doing something OnlyFans based or similar. Because that everyone's like, oh yeah, you should. It's so easy. Oh, you just pose your pants off. it's real work doing an OnlyFans thing. I don't know if you've. I mean, it's not so much doing it like for a little while. It's keeping it fresh and keeping it sexy every week. If you want people to come back, not only do you have to like tick enough boxes to for enough people to find you sexy, to want to see what you look like with your clothes off, but then you have to be able to bring them back every week so that they keep paying, so that you keep making some money off it and that kind of thing. And that's hard work, especially during lockdown, because I actually signed up for a couple of OnlyFans for research during, it's great. I can sign it, I write it off as a business expense. It's brilliant. It's the same as going to Sweatbox. That's a business expense too. Anyway, what was I saying? I signed up to a couple of OnlyFans during lockdown just because I'm like, I'll treat myself. This is a bit different. It's a bit more real. I'm keeping it down with the kids. I'm not going for all that kind of middle class porn that's done in studios with like real cameras and things. This is the working class porn that people do at home in their bedrooms. And I didn't think this through, because lockdown is the worst time to be signing up to someone's homemade porn, because there's only so many things you can do around your house before it starts to get a little bit boring. And I watched a few people have the same bored wank like 3 or 4 times in a week, and there was literally one guy, this Colombian guy, he was super hot, but all of his porn was just him like, because there was nothing else he could do, because he can go out. I'm sure now he's doing much better, because he can go back out there and be shagging everyone left, right, and centre. But it is real work, OnlyFans. I think if you don't know anyone that works in the adult entertainment industry, I'm sure they'll tell you that sex work is real work, and those kind of things are much harder than they look, especially because you've got to make it look like you're enjoying yourself. And you know, I struggle with that, but even with it's just me and someone that I've chosen to have sex with because I thought I'd enjoy it, and to do all that and kind of hold my stomach in at the same time, no, it's too much. I'm not doing that. So anyway, basically what I'm saying is that we should all normalize OnlyFans and support our friends in their sexual careers. And I think there's nothing wrong with seeing your friends nude. I think that's a beautiful thing, or maybe it should be. How are we doing? Am I doing all right? This is very odd to do in front of people. Much like my sex life, I'm mostly doing it on my own. That was a fucking joke. Come on, please. There we go. That's better. Anyway. Okay, so romance. There's another story that we tell ourselves. This idea that someone kind of coming to you and like, here is a plant, I killed it, let's watch it die. And shit, I'm like, I don't find that sexy. Like, flowers and chocolates, the gifts are not my love language, which I'm exploring at the moment, actually, in the current run of the podcast. It's really interesting, because I'm kind of learning a lot about myself in a way that it feels really basic, and like I should have learned it ages ago, you know? Like, oh, gifts aren't my love language because people always get it wrong, and I'm always mildly offended that they don't know me as well as I think they do. And also because then it makes me feel like an ungrateful fuck. But maybe it's the idea of at least they put some effort in, at least they're trying. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of keeping me out of... one of the things keeping me out of a relationship. Yeah, the other things are my personality and my face. But I'm glad you laughed at that one. If you just nodded, that would have been quite harsh. Anyway, and like keeping all that up, like OnlyFans, keeping it up over time is a bit of a grind, you know, to keep that effort up, keep things sexy as you're going along. I feel like there has to come a point where you slowly start to breathe out, and you slowly stop trying to impress this other person and actually let them see you as you really are. And that feels wrong to me. Like, you're not ever supposed to let someone see who you really are. You're supposed to always have this veneer of amazingness that you never let down. And that's terrifying. I think mostly I'm basing this on some straight relationships, because my old housemate, who I lived with for about 5 years and could not stand, him and his girlfriend, I would see them together, and it was just 3 or 4 times a week. She'd come around and they'd sit and watch TV together and have takeaway, and they barely talk to each other. They just sit there, and then some nights she'd come around and a little bit dressed up and say, "Oh yeah, it's date night." I'm like, "Oh cool, where are you going?" And he'd be like, I think we'll just get some takeaway and watch TV. And I'm like, but she put up with it. And like, I mean, like, okay, fine. If that's what relationships are for straight people, maybe that's all they need to be. But that's not what I want. And you know, and maybe this is, and part of it is that I'm just not really very good at commitment. I don't even have my own Netflix account. That belongs to that old housemate who moved out a couple of years ago. I don't know if he knows. Don't care. But yeah, and I feel like for me, as someone who is dating but not in a committed relationship, I feel like a lot of the onus is on the sex and like keeping the sex interesting and even even guys that I kind of have been seeing like on and off but long term, the sex is quite similar. There's one, he's gorgeous, he's amazing. He's a lovely guy and the sex is great, but it is always the same sex. Every time we have sex, it's always the same sex, like same 3 positions. I can pretty much time it. I know how it's going to go. It'll be great, but it's always the same thing. And I wonder, like, is that relationship sex? Is that how it works? If you don't put the effort in, if you don't keep things spicy, is that where it goes? And it becomes a bit of a as much of a routine as everything else. You get into a rut in your sex life, and I don't know. I think I'd probably just not bother. Like if I'm dating someone for the first, maybe the first 6 months, you get plenty of sex out of me, and then I just kind of go, we've done that. I know how it works. You know, go find someone else. Outsource it. Like it's like cleaning and cooking and driving. I just get someone else to do it for me because I don't want to. So add sex to that pile. We'll get some burly Polish woman to come in and do it. It'll be fine. Just get it over with. But the idea of I love this idea of romantic sex as well, that we see in TV and movies, and there's lots of eye contact and it's slow and sensual. And have you actually tried that? It's really awkward. Someone making a lot of eye contact while they're having sex with you. I find it very, very weird. It's like, what? I'm doing the best I can. Please just fake it and let's go to sleep. Maybe that's me. I remember there was someone was talking about how their new boyfriend was really romantic because they'd shag for a while, and then after part way through he'd kind of like stop and go, you're just so beautiful, I need to just look at you for a minute, and this girl was like, it's so lovely, and I broke it. I broke that because I kind of went, he's doing that so he don't come. He's not that bothered. He just needs a minute to catch his breath. And her face, I feel that face haunts me. I'm so sorry to her, and because she thought it was this beautiful romantic thing, and I'm like, no, he's just trying to catch his breath. He's just thinking about dead puppies or something for a minute to kind of keep going. I think they're still together, so maybe I didn't break it entirely. Maybe and part of it, I suppose, is like getting sexy in different places and things like that. Which I don't think I need to go into too much detail about. But one bit of advice that I've been meaning to put in the podcast somewhere and I haven't found the right place for it yet is do not try to eat ass in the shower. You will drown. I know this to be true and almost lost my gym membership over that one because the reflex when you're drowning is to cough, and it went on for a while, and like this dude actually came and was like checking up on me, and I'm like, yes, I'm fine, please go away. Anyway, I could have just not left that, not mentioned that. But this straight guy that I live with, there was one romantic thing that he did. This was romantic to me, anyway. I'd hear, no, sorry, this is a different straight guy I live with. Must have been. There was another straight guy I live with. For some reason, because the first one went so well. And he was a bit of a man whore, and he'd always have girls round. And we shared a wall, so there were lots of nights I'd hear grunting and squeaking and all those kind of kind of noises that straight people make when they have sex. I don't understand it myself. But most nights after he was done, he'd be like, can I get you a glass of water or something? And the girl would be like, oh, wow, that's really nice, thank you very much. And then I'd hear his bedroom door close. And then as he went down the stairs, just every step on the stairs, he'd be like, and he was only leaving the room because he needed to fart. And I think that's really nice. That to me is romantic. That he would put the effort in after doing all the sex and all that kind of thing and getting all of the fun stuff out of the way, he would still bother to leave the room to break wind. I think that actually, that's nice. I like that, you know. I have also, from personal knowledge, another nugget to share with you that if you have had a date with someone that you're trying to impress and you have been holding in farts, it is best to leave the room or find some way to get rid of them, because when you fall asleep, you will relax and they will come out anyway. It's nothing worse than just kind of just as you're nodding off and then just blowing the covers off of your lover. Anyway. I've written a note here, and I don't know why, and you're going to wonder why as well in a minute, because I just, from my experience, I'm wondering what you guys would say was worse. I'm going back to eating ass again just for a minute, because why not? It's fun. I enjoy doing it. I'm very good. I've got a very pointy tongue, and and circular breathing. It's all about in through the nose and out through the mouth. Anyway. If you were rummaging around down there, enjoying yourself and your companion, which would be worse to encounter? A skid mark or a hemorrhoid? Any thoughts? Like, I don't, there's no bit to this. This is just a genuine question that I'm asking. Like, the hemorrhoid, I see what you did there. But it's clean and it's just there. You can kind of give it a little tickle, a little wobble. Yeah, no? All right, that's a cringy thing. Cool. A bit too far, fair enough. Anyway. I don't know what I'm going to do with that bit. I just thought I'd bring it up, see how everyone reacted. Yeah, you give it a little tickle. No? All right, we'll move on. One of the things that I was really surprised at with the OnlyFans thing that I did for a little while, which is still going on, I just haven't posted on it for like too long. But the OnlyFans thing that I'm doing it's mostly erotic literature that I read out. So there's no visuals. It's all just me, because I have the podcast equipment. So I was like, fuck it, let's do something sexy with that and turn it into an OnlyFans. So most of it is erotic literature that I found online that I'm reading out. Lots of throbbing this, quivering that, all sorts of sweating and moaning and grunting. Fun. But just for a change, I decided to upload a recording of me having sex with someone. So it's just kind of creaky bed noises and gruntings. And when I uploaded it, the thing that the response that I got the most, I found very, very odd, was people going, "Oh my God, like a considerate top. You keep asking him if it's okay and if he's feeling all right." And I'm like, is that not normal? I thought everyone did that. Like, no, apparently, like most people just slap it in there and jiggle it around with very little concern for the other person involved. And I find that very, very strange. And although looking back, that does actually make quite a lot of sense. It's one of the reasons I don't bottom very often, because it's depending on size. I mean, if you're with a more petite, more dinky gentleman, it's like being stabbed to death with a Sharpie. It's just that kind of, yeah. Oh God, all right, fine. Oh, I'm done. Oh, well done, thank you. Yes. Or if he's a bit heftier, it's like having an organ harpooned. Like something's gonna like. Oh, sorry, that's a kidney. Leave it on the side. I'll sort it out after. Yeah, it is a bit terrifying when you're done and you kind of feel like something's been knocked loose. Anyway. Another romantic. I'm going to skip this one. Move on a bit. Another romantic. Maybe this was one of those death of romance things. There was a young gentleman that I made sweet fuck with, and afterwards he was like, he went off to use the shower and everything, and I was just kind of laying there in kind of post-sexy kind of cool kind of thing, and he came back and he was like, wow, it must have been a while. This is true. I'm only telling you this because it's true. This isn't a stupid joke I made up. He's like, wow, it must have been a while for you. And I was like, yeah, it had actually. Like this is like one of the first guys back after lockdown, and I was like, why do you say that? He's like, oh, I coughed in the shower and it went everywhere. Like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's not something I needed to hear. That's fucking gross. Yeah, I know. But then I think it's. I mean, I think the most romantic thing I can think of, the thing that would aid my romance the most, and we're back again. We're on poo and farts. I think the most romantic, the most aiding, the thing that would most aid any kind of romantical encounter for me would be a noise cancelling toilet seat. Just because no one needs to hear the kind of thunderboxy noises that come out of there when, especially if you've had a very charming flirty, just gonna nip to the bathroom, and then you get that kind of Hans Zimmer kind of like the kind of kind of action, and though that the toilet bowl itself seems to amplify that noise. There's a lot about farts in this, isn't there? I'm sorry. But it's really hard to lay there and be like, oh, God, I'm actually really into. I remember this is one guy that I like really fell for quite a bit, and I knew I was quite into him for two reasons. This is one of them. That he went off the toilet, and I was like, oh, he's so cute. And then I had to like scrabble and put some music on, but I couldn't get the music on fast enough. And there were certainly things I heard that should have put me off and didn't. And I'm like, wow, I must really like this guy just from some of those kind of noises. The other thing that he did that I didn't mind, and that's how I could tell I really liked him, was he snored. And I value my sleep quite highly, which is a nice way of saying I have tried to kill people for keeping me awake. I will smother you with a pillow if you keep me awake. And I don't see a problem with that. I feel like that is normal. Sleep is good. Sleep is lovely. And you can sleep in my bed next to me as long as you don't move, twitch, talk in your sleep, breathe heavily, or do anything else that's going to wake me up. And he was at it like a little lawnmower, bless him. Adorable, right next to me. Just and I was like, oh. And yeah, oh. Thinking about it, snoring's just like bragging, really. It's someone laying there going, I'm having a lovely sleep. Sorry, you're not, but this is great. You should try it. I'm like, yeah, fuck off. Anyway, what am I on? Yeah, romantic talk. That was another thing. Like that kind of, my darling, I saw you across the room, and from that moment I couldn't stop thinking about you. It's all great until you change kind of one aspect of that. If you change the voice, and it becomes, it gets a lot creepier if it's just like, oh, my darling, I saw you across the room. I couldn't stop thinking about you. And no, that's not sexy. Or even the context. Like, if say you're in a club and someone comes up to you and stands next to you at the urinal and tells you how they couldn't stop looking at you across the room, it's a lot less sexy. The vibe changes quite quickly, and I don't find that kind of thing sexy. I'm like, oh, it's creepy, it's spooky. Ugh. The same with dick pics. I don't understand how dick pics are supposed to be a sexy thing. I've never found dick pics sexy. It's like, give me some mystery, tease me, show me like some skin, yes, but make it sexy. Don't just like whap it out. It just doesn't work for me. And worse is when people on Grindr will send them to you without any kind of before they say hello, it'll be bum, penis, hey, how you doing? Block. Just because, yeah, I'm not having it. But then the thing that annoys me is if I block them on Grindr, I then have to watch an advert to block them. It should be them that watches the advert because they're the one that made me block them. I think they should be punished by watching an advert. I don't know how that would work technically, but I think that they should be made to watch more adverts for doing things wrong. Anyway, and people say, oh, why don't you pay for Grindr? Then you don't have to watch adverts at all. And I'm like, if I'm paying to be disappointed by men, I at least want to get a drink out of it. I don't want to have to be like just on the app. That seems wrong on many, many levels. Anyway, so romance is this story that we tell ourselves that there are certain things that are romantic and other things that aren't. And I don't really go with it. I don't like it, as we've kind of covered. Another story around another kind of thing around that is this idea that of soulmates, that you're going to meet someone who's the perfect person for you. Why is there only one? Why can't I have 5 soulmates and just on a rota? Like, I can see them every now and then. They'll fuck off and leave me alone for a while. That's my love language quite a lot of the time, is being left the fuck alone. And I don't get this kind of wanting to wake up with the same person every day kind of thing. Like after a relatively short amount of time, actually, I'll just be like, what? Why? What? You again, Jesus Christ. And I don't know. Maybe this is another reason I'll be alone forever. But people keep telling me, just because you haven't met someone yet, and I like to jump in and say, doesn't mean I ever will, which they don't find funny, much like you guys. Okay, I'm going to cut that joke out next time. Another thing I found really weird is this whole compatibility with star signs. Like, people go, oh, what star sign are you? And I'll be like, Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm an Aquarius. Like, oh, I'm a Pisces. We're not going to work together. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not actually an Aquarius. I just lied to try and impress you. I'm actually a Scorpio. And they go, oh, that's a very Scorpio thing to do. And I'm like, oh, is it? Because I'm not actually a Scorpio. I'm a fucking Virgo. Like, oh, lying about being a Scorpio. Yeah, that does sound like big Virgo energy. I'm like, oh, does it? Because I'm not a Virgo. I'm a fucking Leo. And do you see how this works? I can do this all day because there's no... People are actually having their timing their conceptions so that their children will grow up will be born in a certain star sign and shit like that now. These people should not be allowed to have kids. When you have IVF treatments and things like that, and gay people trying to have sex. No, Jesus, we have a lot of sex. No, trying to have a baby, not through the sex, because it doesn't matter how hard you try, that's not going to work. But gay people trying to have kids, and the number of hoops we have to go through, and then the straight people who are like, oh, let's fuck in January so that he's an Aquarius. Ooh. No, Jesus. I don't understand how that can be a thing. Like, surely there should be some kind of license for having kids. And I am prepared to make that a thing. Although one guy that I was chatting to on Grindr, when I kind of said, I don't really believe in star signs, he was like, oh, okay, fair enough. What's your Myers-Briggs profile, which is the IFNP or whatever kind of thing? And I was like... that's just as bad. That's star signs for pretentious people. And he's like, oh, well, what type are you? And I'm like, all of them, because it doesn't work. And he's like, I see, you're one of those. You must be an EFNP. And I'm like, fuck you in the face. Anyway. So mostly this is me working out why I'm single. I hope we're all enjoying it as much as I am. I think... another reason I don't like people staying over is because of my skincare regime. As I said, I'm almost 40. This takes some work. 7 steps in the morning and 5 before bed. And I don't know if I'm ready to show that to anyone that I'm trying to impress. Again, if I'm keeping up this facade of being impressive and cool, this needs to seem fairly effortless. And knowing that it takes 45 minutes at night and another half an hour in the morning to kind of put this on doesn't really appeal. And I don't know, like aging and all of that. Like my Grindr profile still says I'm 32. I've been 32 for a long time on Grindr. And I'm okay with that because so many people put like cutoffs, like especially the younger gentleman. One of my favorites is when you see someone with like profile of age 50 looking for 18 to 25. I'm like, yeah, good luck, boy. Good luck to you. But my rationale for lying on my Grindr profile, like, you know, just kind of reducing, exaggerating my youth, if you will, is that so many people have filters there that would otherwise cut me out, and then they'd miss out on meeting me. And I'm a delight, so it should definitely be allowed. But then I think there's a bigger thing now, excuse me, than when I was a lad, about the daddy thing. It's a lot more of a thing now. Older gentlemen are getting a lot more attention from the younger gentlemen, which why not? I mean, it's all good, it's all fun. Especially, like I say, I live near halls of residence, so I get 18, 19-year-old. This wasn't intentional. I didn't choose that flat because it's so close to several halls of residence, but it's certainly quite a perk in its way. And there was this one story that I think I've told on the podcast before, where I turned 36, I think, so a little younger than I am now, but still fairly getting up there. And this young man was chatting away, and he seemed very into me, and I was like, oh, this is nice. And I was like, yeah, it's fun chatting. I'm enjoying the attention, but I'm not really that bothered, and I'm not actually going to hook up with him. And then he sent me some photos, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's fine, it's all right, yeah, it's very attractive. And we were chatting away, and then he sent me some more photos. So I invited him around, because, Jesus Christ. And we were getting sexy and everything, and it was lovely, and it was great fun. And I was feeling I was feeling very old beforehand, and then having this young gentleman who was literally half my age, who was very into me and enjoying it too, was great, and I was having a lovely time until he said those three words that kind of ruined it for me. I'm gonna. Let's go back a little bit. So if you imagine, I'm going to set the scene. Actually, is what I'm going to do. If you imagine sex a little bit like a roller coaster in this example, in that there's lots of screaming and throwing yourself around and bumpy bits and up and down and loop to loop and all that, and it's all the anticipation's there while you're queuing, and then you're on it and it's all exciting, and afterwards you're like, Jesus Christ, that was fun, but I'm all right, I don't need to go on again. And we were getting towards the end. We were just getting to the big kind of dip before you swoosh down and have your photo taken. So we were all enjoying that. And then just as the roller coaster was tipping over the edge, just as we were kind of going straight down towards the exciting, I don't want to say climax because it's not a good climax. Anyway, we were heading towards the climax, and then just as we got to the point of no return, he said three words, and these three words, to a 36-year-old, were a little bit traumatizing. So much so that there was. If you imagine, the kind of tape measures that dads have, the ones that are in the kind of metal thing, and like shh, and you measure things, and there's a clicky thing. And if you and your brother had one, you'd have one each, and you'd fight each other with swords and that, and then you'd end up hurting someone because they had quite a sharp edge on them. Those kind of things. As he said these words, just as everything was happening, it was like releasing that kind of thing, just like stunk back in. And I didn't so much jizz as the jizz just kind of stayed where it was, and every part of me just retracted around it. Because as we were banging away, and this very handsome, very sexy young man just looked at me and then said far too loudly, he said, "Fuck me, daddy." And I'm like, there's nothing that's going to kick you harder in the ego when you're feeling old and you invite this young twink round for some sexy times than when he actually just looks at you and says, "Fuck me, daddy." But we got through it, and he was very understanding, and he let me cry about it for a minute or two, which was very nice. But I do wonder, like, what would say it was the other way around? Say, what am I supposed to say to a young gentleman as the older person talking to a younger person? It's like things like, "Oh yeah, take it, champ. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that feels great, sport. Well done, buddy," and things like that. I don't know if that works. Yeah, my favourite thought on that one is if he's going to say "fuck me, daddy," then just as I come, I'm going to shout, "I'm proud of you," and then we can both have a good cry afterwards. Fuck him. Oh dear. Anyway, aging. Like another sign of aging is I no longer have a left knee and a right knee. I have a good knee and a bad knee, and and like I say, I do the old man noises when I get up and I sit down, and also, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. This is a genetic thing, it must be, but like the last year certainly, my nostrils and my ear holes have started growing hair like they're trying to win a bet. It is disgusting. I don't like it. I mean, it's just hair. It's just a body thing. It happens. But there's grey ones in there as well. And that's it's bad enough that there's like big, thick, bushy bits of ear hair. But when there's grey ones, it's just... Anyway, But yeah, the other thing I've noticed is that I have to push when I wee now. Never had to do that before. When did that start happening? Why is that a thing? That like, it's not something you think about as you grow older, that you're eventually going to have to push when you wee. But never mind. Anyway, I think a lot of this is, I think, society, especially gay society, a lot of it is kind of celebrates youth in a way that isn't entirely healthy. I don't know why I'm just picking that up and not drinking it. We celebrate youth in a way that isn't very healthy, and in that we obsess about it and we try and regain it, when really there's a lot to be said for changing that story from being, oh, when you're young you're great, when you hit 30 you're irrelevant, and when you hit 40 you might as well be dead. If we turn that round and just kind of look at it as, we've lived this long, that is a victory over entropy. The universe is falling apart. Every single part of your body yearns to be left alone to rot and return to the woods and everything else, and yet here we are. I think we should celebrate that. I think as we get older, we should see it more as a victory and a good thing, because the alternative isn't much fun. We can't not age. Linear time is a bitch, and not being here at all would be horrible. And there's plenty of people who I'm sure would happily swap places with us if they were given the chance. So I have actually, with this in mind, trying to change that story in my head from kind of, oh, I'm an old man, achy, to just embracing it and being a little bit more kind of, fuck off, I'm old, which is a great sentence that you can use a lot more often than you think. It started off, the first time I used it was, I was in New York, and one of my friends is a drag queen, and he was like, oh, do you want to come to my show while you're here? And I'm like, yes, that would be amazing. I'd love that. He's like, cool. All right, I'm at this place in Brooklyn, and I'll be on stage at like 2 a.m. I was like, I'm sorry, what? It's Wednesday. Who's watching a drag queen at 2 a.m.? And apparently this is the thing. Like, New York's a weird place anyway. But it was the first time I've got to use the phrase, fuck off, I'm old. And it was freeing. It was lovely, because I didn't feel like I had to go along to this thing anymore. Like, hey, do you want to come to a rave in a shipping container on the Isle of Dogs at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday morning? No, please go away. I'm old. I'll be in bed. Like, oh, we could be, do you want to go out for a drink? I'll finish work. I'll be there by about 10:30. Fuck off. I'm old. I'll be in bed by 10:30 watching the Golden Girls, because that is who I am now. And I'm okay with that. I've kind of embraced that a little bit. And I think for me, it's all about finding that balance between fuck off, I'm old, and also still having friends and having some kind of life. Because I'm too easily, because it is quite easy to fall back into that, no friends, no one, I want to be left alone forever, I will return to the woods and become one with the trees. Whereas all that will actually happen is I'll sprain my ankle and sulk and come home and not enjoy myself. Anyway, that was romance, wasn't it? I was talking about romance a while ago. I think I'm almost done with this subject. I'm going to check my notes in a minute. I haven't really been looking at them because I wanted to kind of just see how I do without them. Does anyone else on Grindr have like a maximum distance that they're willing to go? Yeah? I'm getting nods. I can see nods. Like, for me, it's 1 kilometre. Oh, shit. Which is about a 10-minute walk. If you're weird and use miles, I'd say 1 mile is definitely the furthest I'd be willing to go. You'd think so, but the furthest I've ever been for a date was the Middle East. I got on a plane. I was very into a young gentleman who lived in Tel Aviv, and I got on a fucking plane. And that banter's about as well as you can imagine. And I think part of me thinks that that's a good idea, to be adventurous and to be, I'll come a long way to meet you, because it might be amazing. You might be my soulmate. You might be the one that I'm supposed to be with forever. More than likely, they'll just be a disappointing shag and a very long commute home. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. I do know, and I'm not ready for that. I'm not doing it. Fuck off. I'm old. That might be my new mantra. I think it works for all sorts of things. It's like, excuse me, sir, can I see your ticket? Fuck off, I'm old. It doesn't really work quite the same way. But, Anyway, what time are we on? 10 past. Okay, right. No, it's not 10 past. It's an hour and 10 minutes. I think actually I've been talking for long enough, so I'm going to start wrapping this up now. So we're talking stories, so I suppose we should talk about endings. Happily ever after. Apparently that's it's quite a queer thing to yearn for a happy ending, as it were. Yeah, because I think we're used to not having a happy beginning, so we want a happy ending. Like there's some kind of cosmic justice, which is just another story we tell ourselves. The universe does not care. There is no justice. There is no. If you have a shitty today, tomorrow will be brighter. Might be, might not. And that sucks. That wasn't funny. I don't know where I was going with that one. I should stick to my notes. I don't like the pressure of happily ever after, because no one is always happy. Nothing lasts forever. I think if you wanted a better phrase to end a story, one that would be more appropriate, I suppose, for me and my stuff would be, and then they fucked, which, as endings go, is as much as you need, because, I think part of it is that life is messy. Nothing ever in real life ever ends properly. There's always bits that weren't resolved, or there's other bits that we just kind of had to cut out for pacing or whatever, and it doesn't really work. Everyone just goes home and keeps fucking everything up, and then the sequels are never as good as the original, and maybe and then they fucked is the best that we can hope for. It shouldn't be, but so you can see I finished writing this like 10 minutes before I came here to talk about it with you, and I think I might have fucked up the ending ever so slightly, but never mind. Because we're telling stories, we're shaping reality, and maybe part of it is that we want there to be happy endings. Ooh, because we want to think that all this suffering is worth something. I don't think it works like that. I don't really don't. So anyway, other stories that I could tell you, future stories. I'd love to tell you the future story of meeting my husband and falling in love, meeting my husbands and falling in love. Again, I'm not having one. I'm going to have 4 or 5 on some kind of rotation. It's easier that way. It keeps things interesting. Some kind of sexy commune somewhere. And maybe there's stories about my kids. Maybe I'll have kids one day. I don't know. I'd like to. I think that would be interesting. Those stories would be cool. And there are people who say I should tell them because it would be speaking them into existence. That's not a thing either. Might happen. Might not. All I want for a future is to be loved and supported and surrounded by loving people, and for all of my siblings, my queer family to be safe and secure, and for all the Tories to be on fire. Is that too much to ask? Really? And that's an uncomfortable note to end on, isn't it? But that is where this is going to kind of wrap up, because I didn't want to end with anything twee or stupid. That's not how I do this. So instead, I will just end this as I've done a couple of times on the podcast, and just kind of say that may Kylie bless us and bring joy and light into our lives. And if not, if the universe conspires to make things painful and hard, then hopefully Cher will guide us through the dark times. So yes, thank you very much. I hope this was as weird and awkward for you as it was for me. Thank you. Let's all get drunk.